Okay, we're back. So, the next problem I was facing is the fact that I ended up with a flicker. So let me just bring this code back in. I've got a way to basically check if we're checking the auth state, which allows me to get this nice loading spinner. So if I go to log in, notice we get that loading spinner. But see that disgusting flash that we get? Look, I'll show you again. So we get that gross flash of the login screen. I think I might be able to avoid that by just showing the login screen and having a kind of an overlay loading spinner. And it turns out Quasar actually gives you access to one of those through a plugin. And I believe all you have to do is, I might even be able to say use loading. In fact, let's have a little look at how it works. Don't need that, don't need that, don't need that. Might keep that. All right, so a lot of people don't actually know this, but Quasar's got some really handy plugins as well. One of them is this loading plugin. I'll show you what it looks like. Show loading. Notice that it sort of takes over the whole screen, which is great for situations like this, where it's like we're preparing the login screen for you. So to me, this is kind of a perfect situation. And all we need to do, okay, so we say use Quasar. And then we can just say $q.loading, whatever. But we'll have to do some setup as well, which is basically getting it installed. And we do that by going to plugins. And I'll show you. We go to quasar.conf, plugins. We have no plugins at the moment. We're just going to use the loading plugin. Now we come back to this login page. I can say const $q is equal to use Quasar. There we go. This is how we get access to that sort of $q thing. And then what we should be able to do is basically set that loader to begin with. .loading, and I think you have to say show. Let's come have a look at the code again. Yeah, here we go. .show. And you can add a delay as well, which might be helpful. I'll just go show to begin with. Let's just see what that looks like. And comment that out. Should we, we will want to use checking. Can we pull a function out of here? Like a hook? For example, to say on something happened? I don't know what that would look like. I basically want to be able to say, I have checked now, so stop showing the loading spinner. All right, so let's think about that for a second. Or maybe it is better to have this checking thing so people can implement it however they want. And then we simply add a little bit of extra layer of implementation here. I think that does actually make more sense, especially since we're thinking of through the eyes of turning this into its own view plugin. So we'll say watch, and I'm going to watch checking here. And then I basically want to say if, so we'll take in here new checking. So if checking is equal to, new checking is equal to true. Oh, sorry, false. So we're no longer checking. Then I want you, whoops, copy that. Keep cutting it instead of copying it. I want you to say the loading is now hidden. So hide the loading, hide the loader there. So let's try this. We're going to go to /login. All right, it doesn't get set to false though. Yeah, okay, I can see why that's the case. Yeah, it'd be better if we had a function here that basically says onChecked. Let's see if we can do that. On auth state change, we could say that that's kind of the onChecked. On So I guess this would just be, hang on, let me think about this. We want to make it so that this is a function with a callback. God, I haven't had to deal with callback functions in so long. Function on checked accepts a callback, right? And then we simply say callback like this and call that callback. What's wrong with that? That's weird. Its value is read right there. Callback, because this is a function. Call back. Just close out of that, get back into it. Unchecked is a oh, okay, no, you wouldn't do it. Oh, God, I'm confusing myself. Unchecked is a function that accepts callback, and then we call callback like that. Okay, so now what I can do is, man, I really need to push my brain here. We say onChecked, and that callback function we could actually provide the user as well. So onChecked gets, really that's what should be onChecked though, shouldn't it? That callback. No, that makes sense. So hang on. So onChecked, and then with the user, which gets passed in there to that callback. Man, this is really doing in my head. All right, let me think of it logically in my brain now. When the all state is changed, we call this function here onChecked. All right, which the user has imported into their file. Or should that be calling callback? Unchecked callback or something like that. Const onChecked is equal to null. Oh my gosh, this is really doing my head in. Unchecked. Maybe we'll call this like trigger auth checked. And then that calls onChecked and gives it the user. All right, I think I've got this right now. So when the auth state changes, we call this function which triggers onChecked. So why can't we just do that directly like this then? Yeah, an auth state changed, then I want you to call that onChecked function. All right, here we go. I'm starting to get there now. And by default, that's going to be null. So what we will do is check if that callback function actually exists. So if type of onChecked is equal to a function, then we will call onChecked with the user. All right, that's what I want. Now, I think that means I'll be able to do something like this. Be able to say onChecked, and this is something that I can change myself. I don't think that needs to be a reactive variable, by the way. And now let's see if we can make it so that this gets called. Console.log checked. You might get rid of this whole queue loading thing. I'll have to close that out and then therefore close that out and therefore get rid of that. All right. Refresh the page. I don't think it gets called on here. We want to go to the login page. And we've got an error. OnChecked is not a function. Oh no, we want to say that that is equal to a function, is equal to that function. It's a constant. So yeah, I'm not really sure the best way to do this. I've never actually had to follow this pattern before, but it is a very interesting pattern to actually pull a what would you call this? Kind of like it's basically pulling an event out of a composable. So I can't just say let there. Oh, I can because we're sitting inside of a function. So this is going to be an instance anyway. And then it changes it to on. Yeah, all right, that does make sense. Okay, so maybe in that case, we do actually want to change this to a reference to a function. I don't know, let's see how it works out. So then we can say if type of onChecked.value is equal to a function, and I'm going to make sure I'm using .value all over the place here, and call it like that, and then we'll come back here and we'll say onChecked.value is equal to that. Now let's go to /login. Checked. All right, so that's actually getting called. Tremendous. So that means I can simply say onChecked. Bring these back in. I want you to hide it. So by default, it's going to be showing, but then onChecked, you can go ahead and hide it, the loader. And we need to set $Q before that. There we go. So now let's see what happens when we go to the loading page. Sorry, the login page. There we go. We get that loader that takes us straight to this page, and then the loader disappears. That's really, really nice. And now what I can, so this is basically telling the user, hey, we're just checking if you're currently logged in, and if you are logged in, then it takes us to this page. Otherwise, it should, let's click on log out, basically just leave it on this page. So we still get that spinner just for a second there. I think by default it has a delay. So let's loading.show. I think you can pass it through a delay. Yeah, here we go. So let's set that delay to nothing. Or maybe if we actually give it a number like, I don't know, 500 milliseconds. That means it doesn't get shown at all, because basically it was quick enough to pick that up. However, if the user is already logged in, and then we go to the login page, it basically realizes, yeah, so that it kind of realizes quickly enough, which is really nice because it means that if you go to the login page by accident, you do get that loader sort of like quickly showing, But if you're logged out and you refresh and go straight to this login page, it doesn't even show at all. So you get a really nice experience either way. So I really like that. Now the next thing we want to do is implement that on the register page. So register page, I'm really pushing to make this as clean as possible. We have used Quasar at the top there as well. Unchecked. We don't have because we need to import that from redirect if authenticated. And now that needs to be imported as well. Here we go. So let's copy that. Redirect if authenticated. Very nice. Now we want to have that same functionality as well on the other end of things. So let's jump into this redirect if authenticated file. And then we've also got redirect if unauthenticated. So I'm basically just going to copy, paste that in there. It's virtually the exact same. But reverse. So is authenticated is equal to false. Then I want you to push to wherever the person wants you to go. So now if we go to index.view, this is the home page that we have. So we might even come in here and say, I don't know, H1 home page. So let's save that. And then, whoop, that should be sitting up there. Got to get used to this. Then we want to say here, redirect if unauthenticated. What? If un. All right, it's not picking that up at all. Do we have the file? Redirect if unauthenticated. Yeah, it's just not finding it. All right, so let's go import redirect if unauthenticated from, and we'll say services / Firebase / utils / redirect if or unauthenticated. All right, so now we should be able to say here, redirect if or unauthenticated, and I want you to take us to the login page if the user is not authenticated. So currently the user is not authenticated. So if I were to go to our home page, it basically picks up that the user is not authenticated and sends us straight back again. And if I were to create a Quasar app extension for this, then I would probably take that loading spinner logic and put it into its own composable. But since this is not a Quasar app extension specific thing, I won't do that. But that's good to know that if I am going to do an app extension, I can basically put in that little bit of extra effort to create a really nice experience for people that are developing a Quasar specific app with Firebase. So I think this is going to be really nice for Quasar developers using Firebase when I build that app extension out, if I decide to go that far. All right, so what else is there to do? We've almost kind of hit the end here. You can authenticate with these different platforms. We're using composables, which is really nice. I guess the last thing to do is implement the logic. If I refresh the page here, do I get that spinner? No, that's right, because I didn't do that. So I guess the last thing to do is now to start exploring fetching data from a backend. And the other thing I want to do is make it so that when a user logs in, we want to be able to pick up on that. So, yeah, we can do some sort of an action based on when that happens. Because we want to say when a new user is registered, then go ahead and actually create that user on Firebase's side. So we go to Firestore now. We're finally getting into the Firestore data side now that the authentication is done. Yeah, we want to basically be able to say, I've got a new user. Now I'm going to add them into Firestore based on their ID. And I've already put the rules in place for that. So we come in here my gosh, it's taken a while. Yeah, I've already got the rules in place to basically say you can only create a user ID, a user with that ID, so in other words, create yourself, if you are that user. Request.auth, that's what this request auth UID is. It's basically ensuring that the user ID you're trying to create there is in fact you. So, right, let's go ahead and see if we can start building that out. I don't have a lot of experience in this area, so this will be fun. All right. So we want to say I guess we'd want to jump into the register, use Firebase email register, but they could also use the auth provider. So this is an async promise. So it wouldn't be that hard on the implementation side of things. To basically register that user then. So, all right, so let's go into the login page, or where is it? Social providers card. And then this emits auth. So if we go to the register page, we can say on auth, which I think is already happening here. Instead of doing router.push, we'll say handle auth. Handle social auth. Let's be more specific there. And then we can come up here and then have a function for that. This is getting a bit messy. Function handle social auth. Then again, to be honest, if you're going to, no, you have to do it on the register page. You can't do it directly on the social card, because if they're on the login page, then we don't want to try and create the user. All right, anyway. Handle social auth. Eventually, we're going to say router.push, but first, we're going to try and go ahead and actually create that user. And this is where I need to actually do Firebase type stuff now, which I do not have a lot of experience in. Firebase app, I think, is what I want. Have I got that here? Firebase auth. I guess we could have another one that says use Firebase that just gets you the app back. So let's duplicate this because it'll be similar. Use Firebase. And all it's going to do is directly return the injection of Firebase here. So yes, you could just say inject Firebase, but this is kind of a cleaner, more composition API-esque way of doing it. We don't need that, and we don't need that. It's just like a really simple way of getting that Firebase instance. So let's come back here. And now I can get Firebase now very easily by saying const Firebase is equal to use Firebase. And there we go. We'll import that. We'll call that. So now we've got Firebase ready to go. This is all the kind of the stuff that I'm importing. So I'll bring that up in this together. And might add a little bit of commenting here. I Honestly, that comment's a bit redundant. So now I can say Firebase dot. Oh man, we lose all the type hinting. That sucks. So this is why I need to learn TypeScript, because I really need the type hinting right now. Oh, that's okay, because maybe I could just Firebase collection. Oh, how does view use do it? Hang on, view use. Whoops. View use. I did it again. View use. There we go. All functions. Firebase. Use Firestore. Right. So they get their DB. So I think essentially I just want to say dot Firestore in order to get an instance of Firestore. Dot Firestore. That gives me my database, and I would probably then want to put my Firestore database. I won't include it in this package, but you would have it here. So, for example, Firestore db.js, I guess, something like that. And now this can have export default, which is going to be a function, and that's going to give me my Firestore database. So then I can come in here and say, you, don't think I even need to inject it. Let's just, Firebase, might just be able to do this. Well, I've already got my initialized app. See, that's the thing. So let's say import Firebase from Fire. What did we call this? I think I literally just called it use Firebase. Yeah, use Firebase is what I called it, directly like that. Sweet. So now we can say const Firebase is equal to use Firebase, or even app we can call that, because really this gives you your Firebase app, so maybe I should be more specific about that. And then I can return app dot, what is this, Firestore, and that's going to give me the Firestore DB. So now I should easily be able to get the Firestore DB by doing this const Firestore. Did I say use Firestore DB? Yeah, that's what I really should call it. Use Firestore DB. So use Firestore, whoops, DB, and then I can say const DB is equal to that. And there we go. So now I've got a really straightforward way of accessing my database. Delete that and delete that. So next, we want to be able to say db dot, and once again, I'm losing my type hinting here. This is why you learn. This is why you learn TypeScript. Collection. Okay, so you want to get the user ID like that. Maybe there's a better way of doing this. Hang on. Yeah, let's just do it. Let's just do it this way. Oh, we're going to need that anyway. Firebase Firestore. And now we'll return Firebase.Firestore like that. And I should now get type hinting on this. db dot, yeah, here we go, collection. And then we're going to dig into the users collection. And I want you to pull out a document from there, which is going to be the ID of the user that was just authenticated. So I don't know what I'm getting back here. Let's maybe just put in back so I can like console.log this, or even put in a debugger. And I guess I'll comment those out. But then if you comment stuff out, the linter complains, so if I comment that out, I'll probably get a new complaint, which will be there. Let's just save that. And this is our register page. We should probably log out first. Okay, so when I try and authenticate with something like GitHub, that should then hit the debugger if this all works fine. Yep, that hit the debugger. Okay, so I don't actually get anything, but oh, hang on, I can just use the use auth in order to get the authenticated user. Yeah, I can do that. So hang on, let's figure this out. We'll close that out. We'll do an await here. Users.doc. And now in order to get the user ID, but actually, honestly, on this social auth, I should probably be sending that user here. So we've got auth emit. We are actually getting the result there. Let's sign in. Oh, but maybe sign in itself is not actually returning anything. So let's go into our auth providers. Use Firebase auth provider. There we go. Sign in is not actually returning anything. So let's say response is equal to that, and then we'll come down here and we will return that response. Oh, okay, this is scoped. Try catch blocks are scoped. So we'll do that, and then we'll say let response, and that's all I have to do. And then you return it there. Sweet. Okay, so I think that means that we do actually get, that means that handle social auth is now going to give us the result. So we'll get the result in here. So let's throw a debugger in there again. And then refresh this page. Oh, what's it squawking about? Oh, this has to be async. What's that? DB is not defined. Okay, we need to bring all this stuff back in. Here we go. We'll bring it all back in. I don't know why that's saying $ router.push. Why would that ever have worked? I don't know. I'm going to comment it out for now anyway. Oh, of course, because that was originally in the template and then I moved it up there. All right, register. Now we'll authenticate with GitHub, and I expect to hit a debugger, and I expect a result is to actually give me something this time. Here we go. So we get user IAM. What does that mean? Result user. Oh, here we go. So now I can actually use that result, and we should really call that response. That was terrible naming by me. Yep, we'll call that response, and then we'll go to social providers card, and result will become response. And then we'll come in here, and it's called response there, so that's fine. I just want to make sure that the nomenclature is the same all around there. And then, all right, I might be ready to actually write this code out now. Response dot user dot UID. Does it give me the UID? Please tell me it does. It would have to. There we go. But we're not going to say doc there, so let me cut that. We're actually going to say dot set or dot put. What is it? Dot add? I don't know. ID get. Or maybe it is dot doc and then whatever and then dot put. So you're saying for that as the key. Dot set. There we go, dot set. That's what it is. So let's make this read down the page really nicely like that. I'll comment you out again. And so now we're basically setting that equal to, I guess, the user object. Yeah, we could just throw the entire user object in there. Feels a bit overkill. I mean, that's a lot of data that I potentially don't need. Yeah, I don't know. For now, let's just use display name. Have we got actual name as well? Let's have a look. No, it doesn't look like. So we use display name and email. So we'll say name is response.user.display name, and then we'll do something similar for email. There we go. All right. So now, when the user is authenticated using social media, we're basically diving into the users collection. We're creating a new user using the user ID from the response. So this is the user that was just created. And we're setting their name and their email for that field. So if I come in here to Firestore Database, I should end up with something in there. I can actually delete all of this now. So let's just delete collection. Yes, I'm happy to delete that. Give that a second. Okay, so there we go. So what I expect is that I sign in and then I end up with a new piece of data there with my new user. And if that's done, we are very close to having something that I think I can push and make available to people. Well, then I'd have to actually turn it into a package. So where's that debugger coming from? Let's just do a find in here. Bugger. Okay, then. Maybe I actually got rid of it since then. Probably did. All right, so let's log out. Just quickly refresh this. Double, triple, quadruple check. Close that now. So we're going to log in with GitHub. And now we come in here. Did that work? Well, hang on. This is the register page, not the login page. Oops. So we'll come back here. Luke. So we'll have to come in here and delete that account. Yes, that's fine. Delete that account as well. Keep everything cleared. And now this time, let's refresh that page and see what happens. That should send us back. Yeah, to login. Very nice. Register. So now I should be able to register a new user using GitHub, and then that user will be created on Firebase. Crossing my fingers, waiting. Firestore. And there we go. All right, that's working really, really nicely. So now what we should be able to do is nest data in there. So yeah, you would then go like start collection, I guess. Well, I wouldn't actually click on this, but you basically make it so you can have data nested within, from my user. But as far as the plugin is concerned, I think everything is basically done. Just trying to think, what else could there be? I mean, there's a few other things that we could implement. Like, there's going to be people that don't want to use pop-up authentication, of course. But most of the fundamentals are in there. It's separated nicely. All right, well, let's dig a little bit deeper into using the Firestore DB now, because this is stuff that I really need to learn before I can actually teach it. I want to know if I can now add a collection in here and have it only accessible by that user. So if I go to my rules over here, oh God, here's the annoying part. So by default, no one can do anything. And then we layer things that people are allowed to do on top of that. So I guess I want to basically say anything that is that user's data. So user/user ID slash, and then I think you can just do this. So this is kind of like an easy catch-all. If the requested user is not equal to null and their auth ID is equal to the auth ID that was sent in there, then they're allowed to read, update, and delete any of that data because it's their data. And therefore, if you try and update somebody else's data, access it basically in any way, then that should fail. Why are these two separated? Why is create if request.auth.uid? Shouldn't that just be thrown in there? And shouldn't that be the same for up here as well? But I copied this example from somewhere else. I don't really see what makes them different. Anyway, let's publish that and basically test this authentication and see if it works. And if it works, that's amazing. We've got a really beautiful foundation that's going to make it easy for people to build Firebase apps. So we'll go into index.view. So we've got our home page here now. Now I can actually use the DB by saying const DB is equal to use fire, what did I call it? Store DB. No, I accidentally wrote user. Use Firestore DB. DB. There we go. Get rid of that. And we can easily start plucking stuff out of that. And now we can say, for example, const user is equal to, and maybe we could also pull out of here the authenticated user. So it's Firestore DB. Okay, so we could also say export well, we've already got that, don't we? With Firebase auth, don't we? Use auth state. So I can get the user out of there. But I want to get the document with the user already set up. So how about we go use Firestore DB. Export. No, it would mean that you have to take it directly out of there. So you have to do something like this. DB is that. Const Firestore. Let's do this more directly. or const db is equal to, and this will basically allow us to start throwing in some shortcuts that you might want, for example, the user, which is going to be equal to db dot what do you call it, collection users dot doc, and then we're going to put the user ID in there, and I know what that's going to be because I can say const use auth state like this, and better still, I can just pluck out the user like that. So now I can simply say user.uid like this. Use auth state is not defined. Use auth state. There it is there. All right, but I don't want to do it that way. I want to say services slash Firebase slash use auth state. All right, so now I've got the user doc available to me, and I can easily pull out my user by saying user like this. So let's go ahead and see if we can actually display that user. There we go, we can display that. Well, it's not really displaying the user, it's displaying the user doc, which is what I want. Now I'll come back here, and let's see if we can actually start using it now. So when this is loaded, I want to say user dot, and look at this, we get all this beautiful typing as well. Collection, I don't know, what would a user have? We'll just say posts, just to keep things super, super simple for now. And by default, I guess they will have none. User.collection dot, which is going to be the post collection. Dot get, is that how you do it? Yeah, dot get. But then this is where you could use, this is where we could use Firestore. You basically just throw it directly in there. Okay, so let's say const posts is equal to use Firestore. There we go. And we can simply send through posts like that, and that should give us a ref for our posts. And now I can say, well, let's just spit the posts out directly there. So I should get nothing by, oh, we've got an error. Missing or insufficient permissions. Yeah, so posts should be missing. Posts. And we'll just create a document to begin with. And we'll have a title for post. My first post. And then a body for the post. Has to be a string. So my post body. Save it. All right, so let's refresh it. And it looks like I'm getting a permissions problem. So let's go back to our rules here. And I'd say I've done something wrong here. So, well, maybe we can just make it more specific by saying that user ID posts and then anything. No, that doesn't look right to me. We'll try it again, see what happens. No, okay, so this is hitting the limits of my knowledge now. Posts. And then can I just do like, I don't know, post? All right, so let's look up Firebase missions. Oh, they're not permissions really, they're policies, aren't they? No. Policy. I think they're misinterpreting what I mean by policy. Oh, okay, they're calling them rules. All right, we'll call them rules. Firebase security rules. Stand between your data and malicious users. Okay. Get started. Define your data and rules structure. Okay, this is the part I think we're up to now. Let's go to basic security rules. All right, so yeah, that's what we currently have. We're matching all of the documents, and by default, that's just false. I understand that development. Only authenticated content owners access. So user ID / any documents. That's full. I feel like that's what I had before though. Yeah, it is. Oh, what was different there? Documents, plural. Okay, maybe that's why it didn't work. Man, I was so close. No. It also doesn't work. Allow read and write if. Okay, so the way they're doing it is they're basically having the content and then the user ID of that content, and then saying all of the documents. All right, so they're basically structuring their data a little bit different to how I was doing it. So they're not putting posts in there, they're having posts here, then the user ID, and then all of that user's post. I think that's what they're doing. Yeah, so imagine that this is posts, user ID, so that's kind of like describing the owner. Okay, well, let's try that. Posts. Document ID. Oh, let's cancel that. And let me just grab this ID. You can copy that. So I want to be able to say posts. Document ID is that user's ID. Title. My title. Body. The body. And that's it, I guess. So that's all you have to do to then identify that they are the user of that post. So now it should be pretty easy to be able to come into the rules and basically say posts / users, get the user ID, and then all of this is just the same, I guess. So let's try publishing that. And then at this level, posts is going to be not user collection. It's actually going to be, so we'll pull out DB from there instead. And we'll say, oh, now we'll need the user's ID though to find it. DB dot dot collection, and the collection that we're looking for is the post collection. And maybe I'll just get, say, posts is equal to, just to kind of separate these a little bit, posts collection. And then we want to get a document which is going to be equal to the user's ID. And we can get that by saying const user is equal to use user auth state. And there we go. So now we can say user.value.uid. So now we can find the document with that user's posts. And then .get, is that it? Well, there'd have to be a collection nested in there. Otherwise, every time you create a new post, it's going to replace the previous one. So that makes no sense now that I think about it. You can't just say posts. You have to say posts, user ID, and that is a collection of posts. Oh, which makes no sense. This whole thing feels funky. Like, what am I getting wrong here? To create or modify. Yeah, well, that's obvious. Okay. I mean, honestly, it looks like what I had before should have worked just fine. Users, posts. All right, I'm going to do some undoing and see if I can bring us back to that state. And maybe we can just try it without this for now. And then we'll try use Firestore once we get it working. So we got user. Let me just go back here. Dot collection. To go back a bit further. But I'll get rid of that again. All right, so now we should be able to get rid of that. So user.collection.posts, and that should be the user collection. Let's just double check that. DB collection users, okay, so we got the document of the user. And then we're getting a collection from that. All right, so we're in here now. And the collection we're getting is the post collection. And then we're calling get on that. So that should give us all the posts. What? Why is that just showing up now? Missing or insufficient permissions. Okay, well, we did change that, so how do I bring back an old security rule? Well, we could just, at least for now, I could just copy that. Do this. So we get users, user ID, and then basically anything, so anything nested in there. I would expect that to work. And it does not. So let's try. Cutting that and setting it to true to see if it's something to do with that particular aspect. Refresh the page. All right, looks like that's actually working this time. So now I can say use Firestore. Use Firestore like this. I don't think I need to call get on it. Just do that. And that's giving me an empty array. So apparently when I say user.collection, one thing I could do, whoops, is come in here. Oops, I've done it again. And check if we are actually getting the user's UID there. Console.log user.uid. Let's see if that actually works. Oh, well, that probably explains it. Oh, man. Oh, my goodness. Don't tell me I forgot .value.uid. Oh, my gosh. I bet you that's the problem, and everything was working all along. User.value.uid will be passed into there now. Now I'm getting the post back, and let's bring back that rule. Actually, the rule thing was like a permission related thing, so maybe that's not actually it. Ah, you can't go Control Z when you're doing this. I want to say if the user is authenticated and the UID of that user is equal to the UID. Yeah, okay, so it's basically the exact same. We can just paste that in there. Publish. So now let's come back here, refresh that page. Cannot read properties of null, reading UID. I'd say I haven't got the user yet, and it's trying to set the UID, but it can't yet. Right. Okay, well, what we could do is essentially... Yeah, okay, this is a tough one. Essentially, what I want to do is not actually call any of these composables until I know that I've got the user. So let's come in. That kind of makes sense. Like you'd probably... Let's do something like this. Q-page, right? And we can say here, v-if we've actually got a user. And we'll say v-if here, we do not have a user. Then I want you to show me a loading screen. Otherwise, give me this home page screen here. And now I can say q-load spinner. We'll add a spinner in there. And we'll say the class is equal to flex center to throw it in the middle. And we'll set its size equal to large. So now we're going to get a spinner in the center until we actually have a user. No, because this is just a template. That doesn't change any of this running. Oh, I fixed nothing. All right, so I'm just going to have to create another component for this. And we'll do a test component, which we will call user data card, just something like that. That'll do. And then we'll say, no, we won't use Quasar to do it because I like to use my template. new file, user data card.view, and then I'm going to put in my own template there, and this is going to be a q-card, and then we'll have a q-card-section that's going to show the data of the current user, and I guess we'll show their post as well. In fact, we're just going to take kind of all this stuff around here and throw it directly in there instead. It's kind of the point of what we're doing here. We'll take you and throw you in there as well. Cool. So now essentially this is now going to show the user data card, and now let's do that again so we can import it. You got user data card. Still haven't figured out why sometimes that comes out in kebab case, sometimes it comes out in Pascal, but whatever. Post is a sign of value but never use. Okay, so now we actually want to display that data. And for now, we're just going to have a pre-tag, and we'll just whack it in there. Just do a quick refresh. Oh, so the next thing we need to do is actually add a v-if, which is the whole purpose of all of this. And I want to be able to say is authenticated. So we'll say const is authenticated, and that's going to be equal to use auth state, right? So we're plucking is authenticated out of use auth state, and if the user is authenticated, then show this card. Therefore, we should have the UID and be able to fetch the user.collection. All right. And it works. There we go. So now let's change that to a column just to make this a little bit nicer. But what I really want to know, what I'm really interested in, is if I now create a second user, are they going to not be able to fetch that data? So I want to test if the rule actually works first. So once I've got that done, I've pretty much got a working example available here. Excuse me, just burping to myself. Ew. And while we're at it, why don't we just make it so we can have like a create post form here. I'll clean this up later on. I'm getting tired, so I'm just going to sort of plug stuff out. v-model is equal to title and then body like that. Save it. And we might just say here form dot title and form dot body. We'll say const form is equal to a reference to an object which has a title and a body. All right, and then we'll just quickly just throw in a button here, and then @click is equal to create post, something like that, and we'll set a label equal to create, and we'll make this unelevated because I like the style more, and give it a color equal to primary, like this. And there we go. So now we can go ahead and create some data and test if that works. We might as well put the extra effort in by putting in a label equal to title, and we'll make this field as well, just because it looks a little bit nicer. There we go. Same here, but then this is going to be body, and then we can say type is equal to text area. There we go. And then the last thing I'll do is just add a little bit of a margin at the top there. Sweet. And we've got our create button there. We might even margin that a little bit. If you just margin top, just small will do. And we'll full width it as well. Full width. Okay, there we go. So we got a form where we should be able to use to create a post. So now what we can do is basically say create post. That's going to be a function. It doesn't need to take anything in. And when this button is clicked, what's going to happen? See, I don't know how to do this yet, which is kind of exciting. Let's say user collection post dot and see what we've got available. Can you say create dot doc? How do you create a UID in Firebase? Have they got like a UID tool? Quasar's got its own one. All right, let's just use that one. See if that works. So I think I can just call that to create a UID. All right, well, let's you know what, we can just test this anyway. Console.log UID. So let's see if that's going to work. But I am pretty sure, yeah, there we go, that works. But Firebase has its own UID system, I think. UID. Manage users by the UID. How about this? Firebase Create Uid front end. Let's have a look at that. See if I get anything back. Oh, 2013. That sounds like it might be out of date. Anyway, we'll just try. Let's just test it. If this works, then woohoo. If it doesn't, then that's totally fine. But first, I'm going to quickly check what the UID tends to be, for example, for an authenticated user. Hang on. How to generate UID Firebase. How to generate Firebase UID. Here we go. You can use push get key to get the unique key. Okay, so you use push, and then you'll get a key back for whatever that is. You don't actually generate it yourself. All right, well, let's just see what happens. So post.push, is that it? Is that what they're telling me? No, all right. .get, is there like an add? Or what about .doc.push? Okay, let's just try this. Firebase, add data to collection. See, this is really showing how much I know about Firebase. And what's this called? This is called Firestore, isn't it? Yep. So let's change that to Firestore, add data to collection. All right, this might help us. DB collection cities.doc, la.set. Yeah, but we're looking for something where you basically just want to generate a unique ID. New city ID. You must specify an ID for the document to create, for example. But sometimes there isn't a meaningful ID for the document and it's more convenient to localize it. You can do this by calling add. So once you've got the collection, you can call .add. But I thought I tried that. .add. Oh. All right, there we go. It was blatantly obvious all along. And now I can just say form.value. Oh God, that's embarrassing. Okay, so I'm guessing I'll be able to add that in. It'll automatically update. We're not using you anymore. Thanks for having it available anyway, Quasar, but I don't actually need it. And now let's say here, other post, my other post that is amazing. Create. And there we go. It shows straight in there. Absolutely beautiful. You know what? Let's just put in a little bit of extra effort and come in here and say .value is equal to title of nothing and then a body of nothing as well. We'll just put in that little bit of extra effort. Now, the next thing I want to do, now that all of this is working nicely, let's just quickly test that we haven't broken anything else here. Try signing in with GitHub. However, logging in with GitHub might not work because, oh no, there we go, that worked fine. Yep, tremendous, that's all loading fine. So, what's next on the agenda then? I remember there's something else I was going to do. I didn't realize how much Firebase has changed their syntax. Yeah, maybe. Well, this is actually Firestore. When I first used it, I think Firestore was still in beta. I can't remember. I've used Firebase once, and this was absolutely years ago when I was first starting development. So probably like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. When I was doing it, real-time I think this was the only one available, real-time database. But now we've got Firestore. They're not very well named, are they? But I mean, Firestore is kind of a cool name, but the fact that this one's called real-time implies that Firestore is not real-time, and you kind of need to know Firebase stuff to actually know that. But anyway, so this is working. It looks like I can create new posts. So if I go to users, we don't want this anymore. We scratched that idea. Copy paste that in there, delete it. So we can go users. We can say, hey, show me that user's posts. And then here's a list of all of the posts. And that's working wonderfully. Thank goodness. Man, I'm still forgetting what was the last step that I needed to do here. Oh, I wanted to check whether or not users could see each other's posts. So, or like create a post for another user. So let's try and do something malicious now to see if that actually works. I'll log out of here. I'll make a new user. My whole backend is Firestore, but they made many breaking changes in the last update. I'm still Quasar 1 and Firebase 9. Yeah, I have to use Firebase 8 at the moment because at the moment Vue use Firestore, which is what I'm using behind the scenes. It only supports Firebase 8. So the next version of Vue use is then going to support a later version of Firebase, and I'll be able to upgrade. I'm pretty sure the API is not that different, I think. Is that the case? Is the API different, or is it just the way that you import stuff? Let's have a look. So DB collection, so that's how you set data. Oh, wow, that is different. Oh, that's totally different. So the version 8 uses something fluent, uses version 9 basically uses utility functions. Yeah, okay, interesting. The cool thing about this, though, with version 9 is it probably makes it a lot easier to make things more modular. That's what it says, modular. Only import what you actually need, whereas you'll end up with a lot of craft using version 8. And that is often the case, I think, when you're using, what do you call it, like fluent syntax like this, object-oriented programming. Like, it seems to me that object-oriented programming tends to break down because it's less tree shakeable on the front end. So it's great on the back end, but I'm starting to realize that it starts to lock me in more and more the more I develop with it on the front end. So I'm kind of trying to move to more of a, I guess you could call this more functional programming. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess I would call this a more functional programming style, which isn't as pretty to look at. But yeah, like I said, a little bit more tree shakeable, which is important when you're doing front-end apps. Anyway, back to what I was looking at. So we wanted to log in with a different user. So let's go to our register page. There we go. And we've got an error here. That's good. I've probably forgotten to update code on the register page. UID. Use Firestore Db. Use Firestore DB. Why would I even be using that on the register page? Doesn't make sense. DB. Oh, because I'm then creating data. All right, so what we might do here is we'll say use Firestore DB just directly. It just gives you back Firestore like this. So that just gives you Firestore directly. If you want to grab the user collection, we might actually move that somewhere else. And it kind of is implied to me that it would sit somewhere else anyway. So let's cut that. And we'll say source, services, Firebase. Really, I should probably have a new folder at this point called DB, but we'll save that job for later. Maybe collections? because that's what they're called, aren't they? Yeah, collections.js. So now I can say export default here. And this could use the DB. So we could come in here and say use Firestore Db like that. And then say const db is equal to use Firestore Db. Now we need to be able to get the user. So let's come back here and look at how I got the user. It's just doing all this auth state stuff. Use auth state, get that imported. And so now we can basically pull that collection out. And if we ever want to add new collections, we can here. But of course, this would be up to however the user wants to do it. So we don't need any of that anymore. We're basically just returning that directly. So use auth state is now redundant. And there we go. We won't need to bring that into the other one. Okay. To collections. Yeah, that's fine. So now let's try, just refresh the page here, check everything's working, registering with a different account. So if I go back, I want to see what emails are currently being used. Let's register that account. There we go. That worked. I'm getting a bunch of errors though. Oh, that's because user data card is now wrong. Because we need to get the user collection. So instead of use Firestore DB, we're going to say const user is equal to collections, and we're going to take out the user collection from there. So we don't actually need that anymore because collections already uses that behind the scenes. So it's just a slight difference in the way that's going to be imported. Nice. So this user is not seeing any posts, but let's go ahead and make one only for Crazy Buzz, because that was the email, to see. Secret post. Cool. So let's go ahead and create that. That worked, only for Crazy Buzz to see. So let's log out of here now. Let's jump into GitHub, the GitHub one, which is a different account basically. It's got its post, but it can't see the other user's posts. But what I really want to know is, can I come in here and basically try and have a look at posts that I shouldn't be able to have a look at? So here's the idea of another user. What? Oh, this one didn't get created because I used the email, and it means I didn't get an email and name. That's all right. I have to solve that in a moment as well. So now it's got posts and it's got its secret post there, so that all worked. Now let's copy this, and what I really want to see is, can I try and view that data that I should not be viewing? And so let's say const not viewable is equal to, and now we can say const db is equal to use Firestore db, and we'll do this db.collection. We want to jump into the users collection, and then we want to grab the doc that is this ID. So I should not be able to access any documents by this user here. This should not work. All right, so let's give this a go and see if it works. .doc .collection. So we're kind of like here now, and I'm going to try and grab the posts of that I should not be able to see, and we're going to wrap this and use Firestore like that, and I should have a bunch of posts that are absolutely not viewable by me. Card-section, not okay. So this should not work. Nice. Missing or insufficient permissions. Not okay, and we see absolutely nothing there. So I tried to grab the documents by that other user, and it's basically saying no freaking way, which is fantastic. All right, I consider this project, apart from, there's always one more thing, isn't there? You always think you're done, and then there's one more thing. So many loose ends. Okay, so what else are we doing? So I want to say that when you register with an email and password, it actually creates that user account for you as well. So let's come down here. Social providers card says handle social auth. And really that should actually push you now. So now we can say, this is getting very crowded. Const router is equal to use router. Yeah, whoops, that's not the right import. Use router, like that. And now we can say router dot push. Let me just check that is imported. Yeah, that's imported correctly. All right, but what we can essentially do is move a lot of this logic into something that makes it shareable with the register with email thing. So how about we say async function register account, or create account in DB in Firestore. Let's go with that. And there we go. So basically we can take a lot of this logic here now, just paste it in there. And what we need though is the name and the email address in order for that to work. Name will be equal to name, email will be equal to email, like that. Nice, that can turn into a one-liner now. There we go. And essentially we're just going to call this instead. That's going to be returned. We want to return that await. So we get a promise back and we can await the await. And now we'll come up here. What do we do? Actually, let's go await, create account in Firestore, and then we will give it display name and email, like that, which means I can remove all of this. Cool. Now we don't get we need the user ID as well. So let's make sure we got the user ID as well. There we go. And we'll just pass that user ID directly in. And we're getting that from response dot, what is it? Response, I can't remember what I had before now. Response.user.uid. Response.user.uid, like that. All right, so that's going to work for handle social, but it means we got something reusable here. And honestly, let's just say handle auth instead there, because we can smush that in there as well. Now this doesn't need to be an async function. And we simply call that handle auth like this. And this will not be returned. I might just throw that underneath here. Cool. And now we basically need to implement the same thing for the other auth. So function handle email registration. Yeah, let's go with that. All right, so how are we doing all of that? The email registration thing. Handle register button clicked, await register, and now we can say const response is equal to await register. I might be able to get rid of that function actually. And now we'll be able to say handle auth. And let's just check what we get back from the response. Okay, so console.log response. If it's the same, then we can simplify this even further. Let's try one for Luke at Quasarcast. Luke at quasarcast.com. Login. Oh no, this is login. I want register. Luke at quasarcast.com. Paste that in there. All right, so we get undefined from here. So let's jump into register. That's being pulled out of here. Register is a try catch, but it's not returning anything. So we want to say here, let response, and then we want to say response is equal to whatever we get from that await, and then we're going to return the response like that. Cool. Now that should work, and we should actually get a response back. So I might just log out of here. I'm running out of emails, so let's come back to authentication and get rid of that Quasarcast email. And we can do this again. Luke at quasarcast.com. Oh, bugger. I'm meant to be on the register page. Luke at quasarcast.com. Just going to paste that in there. There we go. We've got a response. So we get response.user, and I bet you everything's the same. Yep. Very, very nice. So since everything is the same there, since the response is the exact same, we might be able to smush some of that code together. Where was I? I want to go back to my register page. Let's get out of this. Close that. Yeah, get into a more focused mode. Here we go. I don't know why I get this black line sometimes. It's kind of annoying. So we'll come down here. We get the response from register. We just console.logged it, and we now know. We can now basically say handle auth and simply take in the response. Like that. And then we can say response.user.uid. In fact, all of this is user-related stuff. So let's literally just pluck out the user. And we'll say user.uid here. And then we can say const name and email, but they're not. But what do they call it? Display name? Yeah, display name and email. I think that's how you do it. That's kind of like saying as, I think. I don't know, I always get them mixed up. Display name. Okay, so no, I got it the wrong way around. Display name as name. So that's what I should do whenever I see that. I should think of that colon as saying as. Display name as name. There we go. So now all I have to do is call handle auth, sending the response through. So we can get rid of that now and just call it directly. Handle auth, like that. And here we can say handle auth with the response we get through there. Oh, sorry, my family just came home, so my dogs are going absolutely bonkers. So I have to leave you all in a second. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go. I will talk to you guys soon. The family's home. The dogs are going nuts. But yeah, we'll finish this up probably later on today.